Welcome to How to Be a Person, a podcast about life with me, your host, Giuliano Grimaudo. All right, Steph, thanks so much for joining me today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on, Giuliano.
Yeah, I was really excited to talk to you. I saw that you are a children's book author, and I have a friend of mine who just recently wrote a children's book. Shout out to Josie McLean, Pedro the Adventure Pup.
Wow, that's a big accomplishment. A lot of people say they want to write a book and have a book in them, but not everybody actually does it. So that's a huge
Exactly.
accomplishment. Congrats to your friend.
Yes. Shout out to her. But I don't know you. I don't know what book you've written. I don't really know anything. That's usually how we go into these conversations. So, like, just tell me a little bit about you. Tell me about what you do, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I am a children's book author, wife, and mother, but I think you could scatter the order around for priority. I've written two children's books for middle grade, which is 8 to 12-year-old children. The first was called Hurricamp, and the second is called Miss Communicamp. And then I have just finished the first draft of a third book that would round out the Camp Hillside series. So I've been keeping busy. I think for me, I didn't start off as an author, but in my very, very distant past, when I was in third grade, I decided that that was my chosen profession and one of those what do I want to be when I grow up essays. And
Really?
I said, I want
You
to
said
be an
third
author.
grade?
Third grade. I'm
Wow.
a very deliberate person, I guess. I know I love to plan, but I now see how deep in my roots that I love planning. So I planned that this was where I would end up. I don't know if I knew that back then, but somehow it
Interesting.
was in the back of my mind that I wanted to be an author.
Yeah.
But I'm also a very practical person. And I remember when I was in college, my parents gave me the advice, do whatever you want to do, but just be able to support yourself. And so jumping right out into the world of writing creatively wasn't something that I felt would pay the bills, and so I decided instead to just go to law school and park
Mm.
myself there for 3 years, and then spend 15 plus years in the business world. And then fast forward to two children later, I decided when the executive I was supporting at Deloitte was retiring that maybe now is that time to revisit the "What do I want to be when I grow up" essay,
Interesting.
and that's how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, there's a couple things I was thinking when you were telling me this. So first of all, I've talked about this recently because my wife just gave birth to our first kid.
Oh,
And
congrats.
this
And
was
you look
like,
very well rested. I don't
oh,
see a lot
thank
of
you.
bags under
Honestly,
your eyes.
he's a great baby. Like, it's really only been like a couple nights where things have been rough.
Hmm.
But for the most part, he's a great baby. His
That's
name is
awesome.
Graham. But
Oh.
I've been thinking about this lately because of that, because of the
Hmm.
fact that I knew I was going to be a father. And I really do believe that children have more figured out than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
And just like you said, you went back to like, hey, this is what I said I wanted to do when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And here you are doing what you said you wanted to do as a kid. I think that's really cool. Like, to me, it just, when you believe a certain thing, you look for reasons for that belief to be validated, right? And so when
Yeah.
you said that, that validated my belief for me.
And I think, the adage of like what you say you can put into being, you do. So like I must have
Mm,
manifested it when I was, however, almost 9 years old, or however I was in third grade. But
yeah,
what you said about children, I wanted to just add on, a
sure.
lot of the themes that I focus on in my books are, about adolescent drama and
Mm,
things that kids learn about themselves. And I have my books set in a sleepaway camp environment because I wanted to see where I could take the drama without a real parent to sort of guide the kids in
mm,
the book along. And so the main essence of what the characters often discover is that they have all these hidden strengths that they may not have realized had they been,
mm,
supported by a parent. Now, of course, in a camp, there's the oversight of counselors and camp directors, but it's
sure,
very
sure.
different than a parent or a relative or a trusted loved one that you've known for a long time. And so kids, are incredibly resilient. And I keep going back to that in my writing because I realize as a grown up now, looking back, like if only I had known X, Y, or Z, I could have done this.
Mm,
And that's sort of part of what drives my writing. Is it's like a therapy session for myself because
mm,
I wish I did this, I wish I did that. And so in the book I explored, well, if I did this or if I did that, the outcome would have been something amazing. And so, for the purpose of my younger readers, I try and highlight in a funny and relatable way how they can depend on their inner courage and their inner strength. And that's sort of a hidden superpower that many kids have that they don't
Yeah.
realize. And, fast forward to adulthood, nothing in life is a given, and you sort of have to rely on those innate superpowers, in so many circumstances that you come across.
Yeah. I love talking to authors because for someone to write a book, you have to care a lot about people. And the
Yeah,
reason is because it's not easy to just sit down and write a book. Like, it's not easy to take your thoughts and put them down into a way that's going to be digestible to the person on the other end and then be able to learn from it. And it's not easy to do that, right?
yeah,
So for someone to do it, even if it's something you want to do, there's effort involved in it, but there's also always a reason, right? No one's
yes,
just like an author just because they're like, well, whatever, I don't know, I'm good at writing, right? Like, people write books because they want to make an impact and they
yeah,
want to change people's lives. And I really do feel, I mean, I'm saying this also from my own experience. I've written a few books.
yeah.
So like,
You know what you're
for,
talking about.
yeah, yeah. But what I mean is that, like, I believe part of our purpose, all people, our purpose is to better humanity, right? To make
Yeah,
not only my own life better, but the people around me. And so when you write a book, it's like this way that you can go like, wow, I can help as many people as possible because this
right.
book can be printed a billion times if it has to be.
Yeah,
And hopefully then the people that read it, they're able to live a better life. They're
yeah.
able to make an impact on the world for the better as well.
Yeah, and to your point, when I was making the transition of corporate speechwriter and consultant to unknown author, I was speaking with my husband, who's got far more business sense than I'll ever have in my this life and the next life, if such a one exists. But he said, "What is the purpose of why you want to write? Like, what's your mission statement?" And it was a tough question because, some people seek validation, some people seek
Mm,
fame, some people seek money, it's a combination of all three. And as I was thinking about it, I came across this quote from Mahatma Gandhi, which is, "In a gentle way, you can shake the world." And so, to your
mm.
point of we want to make the world a better place, I thought about my personality, which I'm a bit of an introvert, as many writers are. And so public speaking is not my first calling, but I realize how
Even though
important it
speech
is.
writing was what you were
You
doing.
know what? I was better writing it for other people than to deliver the
Interesting.
speeches myself. But
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? The reason that I want to write is to take my experiences, the
Hmm.
things that I observe, the lessons I've learned in my life, and share my knowledge and wisdom, or at least, just share what I've seen so that people can take their own experiences and apply it to their situations. And since I don't consider myself as somebody with a big voice, I thought in a gentle way I could shake the world. And it's so poetic in the way that it's a framed way to make the world a better way, but do it in something that feels authentic and comfortable to you. And so I'll gently shake the world. I'm not going to
Yeah.
go out with, a megaphone and try and, you know, do something bold. I'd rather just sort of just like a calm ocean wave. Just I'll be there doing
Mm.
my thing.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the reason that I do what I do is it gives me so much fulfillment to be able to write and share my stories and try and entertain people and help them learn a lesson. And if writing is my gift, which I hope it is, because otherwise all the elementary school teachers that were complimenting me on my writing as a child were horribly wrong. That's hopefully how I can use this gift I've been given, and we'll
Yeah.
see. And you never know, because it's like you can impact one person, or somebody could read your work and then tell someone else about it, and it's like this whole interesting chain of reaction, the butterfly effect, if you will, of
Yeah.
where will this take, where will this book or two or three, that I hope to finish, where will that take me, the world, people that are reading
Mm.
it, people that are impacted by it. So it's kind of an interesting, not so heavy thought about you can have a big impact or you can have a gentle impact. And
Yeah.
it's a really interesting way to think about what I do and what other people do that are in similar situations.
You know what it makes me think of is like when you drop like a little pebble in a pond, that the
Hmm.
ripples will go out, but it's very gentle, but they will
Yeah.
still go out very, very far and have it's
Hmm.
like it is a big impact in that it's far reaching, even
Yeah.
if it's not a massive wave. And that really is what it's like writing a book, because it's like we live in this world right now where like it's just about attention and who can be the loudest. And when
Yeah.
you write a book, you're not being loud, right? If
Yeah.
anything, it's the exact opposite. If someone wants to hear what you have to say, they have to be willing to slow down, to
Hmm.
sit and spend time with the thoughts that you've put on a piece of
Right.
paper. So I love that. I love what you said. Like it is a gentle way to
Hmm.
be able to make an impact.
Yeah. I mean, I think about like you go to a library or a bookstore, there's a lot to choose from.
Mm,
And just finding the audience and finding people that have an interest and, enjoy what you do. That's even a bigger struggle sometimes than having thousands or millions of followers on social media. So
sure.
it's an interesting world we live in these days.
Yeah, for sure. You know what I was curious of, because you said when you were when you graduated that your parents were like, do something to support yourself. Now that you have written these books, do you feel like you could have done that back then?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I'm fortunate that my husband is supportive in many, many ways. I think I would have probably still been at my old job, but the benefit of having a supportive partner, spouse, or family,
Hmm.
is that you can take huge risks. And I
Yeah.
think having that was a wonderful safety net to really explore the creative side and live truly a dream. And it's as
Yeah.
cliche as it sounds, like I never would have been able to do that because I don't think, in today's very, very competitive publishing industry, that there's a lot of room for people to become the Stephen Kings or the J.K. Rowlings,
Mm.
or those big names that sell gazillions of books. It's hard. So I think just to be able to do what I do and also balance it with my family life and live a pretty fabulous existence. It's a nice gift to have.
Yeah, I love that. I will say too, I think like your story, while uniquely yours, is not unique on its own in the sense that so many people will have this idea of what they want to do with their life when they're a kid or
Hmm.
when they're a young adult, and then when they come to the real world, they're like, I can't do that, right?
Right.
Like I can't. There's no way to actually do that, and so then they end up years later, decades later, sometimes going back and be like, oh, I want to do that thing I want to do. And I
Right.
feel like for anyone listening, I think it's something to take to heart. Like this is a I don't want to say common story in the sense that
Hmm.
like everybody does it,
Yeah.
but you hear the story a lot, and it's because there's something to it. Like
Right.
we should be doing what we feel compelled to do, not what we feel like we have to do.
Yeah, I would add that, at least in my career progression, the things that I did leading up to where I got, I think were all part of the building blocks to become who I am. So
I
I
love
did
that.
a lot of writing when I was a kid. I loved English, I loved history. And so I was just like a sponge. And so if I wasn't writing, I was reading. And then when I went to college, I majored in actually pre law, and then I double majored in English because I realized that pre law, even if it was a very solid career choice, maybe I should do something that I love also if I have the time. So I was able to learn a lot doing those classes. And then when I went to law school, I was able to find the least legal classes that I would need to do to pass. And so I was like, advanced legal writing, advanced legal research. I took all the things I needed to pass the bar, but still like I was working on my writing without even knowing it. And I always
Mm,
gravitated towards writing and editing jobs in college, or law school and college, actually. So every time I took different paths in my life to figure out what was it I was ultimately going to do, it was all just sort of building towards the skills and the experiences. And just it's funny how like you things do really happen for a reason,
yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
you sort of need to know what the reason is, or at least know the general direction to help point yourself to get to where you want to go. And so
Yeah.
it's great to have a goal, but it's also important to have the motivation to find creative ways to reach that goal. So
Yeah.
hopefully I took the right steps, but I think there's many more steps to go.
Yeah. No, look, I think that makes a lot of sense. Here's what's really interesting to me. I think that it's great to hear what you just said, because I 100% agree. I think no matter what decisions you've made in the past, I believe you are where you're supposed to be on
Hmm.
your own journey of getting to where you're going.
Yeah.
But what's cool is that like I think it can also be true at the same time that that you should make decisions to get to where you want to go, and not just let things keep going the way they are because you've just simply accepted them. And so
Yeah.
I think it's cool because it's a message for people who are already, like, let's say decades beyond the opportunity to make that decision,
Hmm.
and they might have to pivot, which is fine.
Yeah.
And you can feel good in knowing that, you know what, I trust that everything I've been through and all the decisions I've made that have led me to here are leading me to where I want to go. But
Hmm.
also, if you're still at this point and you're able to make that decision sooner, it's like,
Yeah.
make that decision sooner and do what you
Absolutely.
feel is that you feel actually compelled to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's that saying, I'm going to botch it though, something about luck is being able to recognize or create opportunities. I think
Mm,
I'm probably like 50% accurate on that, but I
that's
think
okay.
the preparation part is what helps you take advantage of opportunities.
Mm,
And sometimes you spot it, sometimes you don't, sometimes you fall into it. I think half the time I fell into it, but
mm,
keep moving. That's,
yeah.
when you do fall into it, keep pushing.
Yeah.
So,
One thing you brought up earlier when you were talking about the premise of the books that you've written, it made me think, because I do life coaching, and I was talking to
mhm.
someone earlier today about this, how I really do believe that, like, all of us know inside us what the right decision is. Right. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of times we might feel like uncertain of like what decision we want to make or what to do next. But
Yeah.
I really do believe that, like, deep down, like, we know. And sometimes you just need someone to help you, like, uncover that. Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes not to give you the answer, but just to
Mhm.
ask you questions to help you get clear on what that thing is.
Yeah.
And that was the experience that I had with this person earlier today.
Mhm.
But it made me think of what you were talking about with the book, where it's kind of like, hey, you have these things inside of you, you have these abilities inside of you, and you just might not be aware of it.
Yeah.
Like, my job is just to hand you that awareness that, hey, you
Mhm.
have this.
Yeah. It's true. And in my books, I often have the main character is somebody that's based on what I would have been as a child, except
Mm.
this character is a far better version of me as a child. So she's fun to write for, but uh, she often has like these really humorous mishaps, and she's on the path to doing the right thing, but like takes a little bit of a sideways turn and then gets back on track. And I think it's so true of humankind. We sort of know where we should be going or what we should be doing, but then there might be a little pull to over here, or you get distracted. I think I see it most evident in my children now because I've got a couple of years on them, decades, I should
A
say.
couple decades.
And when I see them doing something, and I'm like, I want to say, like, "Ooh, are you sure that's the right choice?" And then there's a part of me, depending on what it is maybe I'll let them figure it
Yeah.
out, because if I tell them what to do, what steps to take, like, they'll never figure it out for themselves. And it's
Hmm.
almost like you just kind of create the plate of options for them and see what they choose. And
Mm.
if you've done your work correctly as a parent, in my case, hopefully they choose the one, they choose the broccoli on the plate versus the
Mm.
potato chips.
Yeah.
Although
Well,
I'm not sure that would be the case with my youngest son, but
in reality, um, I think that, like, one of the most important things when it comes to, like, being a, let's say, emotionally healthy adult
Mhm.
is being able to trust yourself.
Yeah.
And I think giving your kids the opportunity to make decisions that might not be the best one,
Hmm.
I think gives them an opportunity to build that trust in themselves, for two
Yeah.
reasons, right? Because number one, maybe they do make a decision that's great and they go, hey, yeah, I can trust myself to make good decisions. But
Hmm.
also, when they make a decision that's not great, they survive it, they
Hmm.
can trust themselves saying, hey, you know what? I'm always going to make the decision that I believe is best. And even
Hmm.
if it isn't the best, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. In my kid's case, I also write a monthly blog, and I do it. One is I write two blogs. One is reflections of my childhood and the lessons I've learned,
Mm.
and then the second is from the main character of my books, and she's sort of writing for a children's audience. And my kids are going to hate me for sharing this, but since this blog is about the lessons the character learns in her young adolescent life, I often take things of what my children do. And
Mm.
so if they do something that they made the wrong choice or they could have made a
Mm.
better choice, they often realize that, like, a few weeks later, this is in the Noodle is the main character in Noodle's
Mm.
blog, and they read about their own lives in a humorous fashion, and then I tell what the lesson learned is so that they can really reflect
Uh,
on it. For me, it's super funny. They can't stand, when I read it out loud, because they each can figure out who was the one that I
they
wrote
know who
about.
is who. Well, that's one way to do it. Just that's one way to secretly get to your kids. Just write a blog
That's
where
right.
they're the
And
main
like,
characters.
but you know what? Mommy has a platform. I'm not afraid to use it.
Oh man, that's really interesting. So, you know, Steph, I like I told you before, I really love talking to fellow authors.
Hmm.
Um, Mostly because of what I said before, that I feel like their mission, like they always have a mission. Like I know before when you're talking about what's the different motivation, I
Yeah.
actually have yet to meet an author that's like, oh man, I'm just trying to make a bunch of money, or oh
Yeah.
man, I want, like, I really feel like they all do want to like make an impact, you know?
Yeah.
Do you feel like after you finish this third book, like that's you're done or what?
It's a great question, because I'm struggling with, do I want to continue writing books?
Oh
And
really?
as you know, like, it's a lot of work and
Yeah.
a lot of time and a lot of effort. And, you put yourself out there, and that's a little bit daunting too. The
Hmm.
fear of, like, what if people don't like it? What if it's not good enough? And of course, when you finally relinquish a book, it's good enough. Otherwise, you wouldn't have stopped editing. And given that I have two books, I must be doing something right. So I don't, that's always the motivation for me of my demons of failure. But, it may be time to pivot again. I don't know. I think, at least for the series, I've always envisioned that it would be a 3-book series, and,
Mm.
I could go back and do a prequel or find another character to highlight. But it may be, time to turn the literal page on writing books. I've thought, like, maybe it would be interesting to do something in, like, a more short form. Like, I really love
Mm.
writing the blogs that I do, and this gives me tremendous joy, and it's very quick reward when you finish it and you post it. It's there, and it
Mm.
doesn't take a year or several years to get a book finished. As a
Yeah.
blog, you can turn around and be done and be ready to write a new one. So if I had the crystal ball, I would love to take a peek at what it is I end up doing next. But I think, just as we were talking about earlier, it's going to see where all these steps are lining up, and where that opportunity might make itself known.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
as part of the author uh, umbrella, I could do like a column, or I could figure
Mm.
out something else to do. I mean, the whole world of media is always changing, and there's something probably that I don't know about because it doesn't exist yet. That might be something I want to do down the line. So I don't know. Maybe AI will help generate another book for me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, no, it's
That's
interesting. It's
scary, though.
interesting.
To me, that's very scary. But,
Yeah.
as I'm editing my book, it has, like, autocorrect, and sometimes I'm like, oh
Mm.
yeah, that's a good change. I like where you're suggesting, and then other times I'm like, no, it takes away the character's voice. Like, I'm not changing
Mm.
that word to something far more formal. So
Interesting.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Come back to me in a year, maybe two, and we'll talk again and see where I'm at.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. So I've written a few well, let's say 2 books right now. So
Hmm.
one of them was more like I would say kind of like life story about like
Hmm.
my experiences, growing up. And then the other one that I wrote was a little bit more practical. It's about habits.
Hmm.
And the one that I'm going to be writing next is a little almost more like how can I describe it? It's almost, I don't want to say it's like a coffee table book, but kind
Uh-huh.
of,
Oh,
right?
neat.
Where it's going to be something where like you can kind of just open it up to any page and it'll
Hmm.
have something useful there.
Yeah.
And so I totally get where you're coming from, because like each book, well, so far, right, as I'm like plotting them out, it's like they're
Yeah.
all very different, and they
Hmm.
do require a lot of work.
Yeah.
But also, like, I've just never been that type of person who just wants to do the same thing over and over again,
Right. So, like, one of my other options is, like, well, maybe I take all the blogs that I've written and I turn that into a book. And see, I've already
Mm,
written the book. I just have to figure out an interesting nuance to how to
see.
package these blogs. That, I mean, I think I'm up to number 38, I want to say. Like, my
Wow.
goal was to write 50. So once I hit 50, then that's really if you want to find the true secret of what my plan is, it's to get to 50 blogs and then decide what do I want to do.
I love that. I love that.
So you can go to
So
my website and count.
yeah, yeah. So the books in the series that I know you said you're writing the third one right now.
Hmm.
Whatever you want to share, either from any of them.
Yeah.
I was thinking could be helpful for someone listening that maybe is like, I'm kind of curious what's in these books and like
Uh-huh.
what maybe some of the lessons might be or something like that. Would you mind sharing?
Sure, no problem. The first book is called Hurricamp, and it is about the main character is her name is Laura Noodle Newman, and she has a nickname because of her curly hair.
Okay.
And she goes to sleepaway camp for the first time, and is initially not enjoying the camp experience, and so it's about being homesick and not ready for independence, and
Mm,
there's a huge storm, as the title implies, and it
mm,
sort of jolts her out of her misery. And she embraces the camp experience after failing at it horribly, and without spoiling it too much, but she ends up loving camp and making some amazing friends. And
mm,
it's all because she changed her attitude. And so the
mm.
book is really about perspective, attitude, embracing challenge, stepping out of your comfort zone. These are all things that I wish I had done when I was the character's age. And
Sure.
it's honestly like the revisionist history that I turned into a really fun book.
Mm,
Um, and so, I mean, there's a lot more in there because there's a couple of subplots, but it's just it's a fun, humorous, not so heavy, very PG book that I think, you could read it at all ages. I've had friends who have bought the book for their kids and they're like, I read it because I was curious. And, it's a really good book. And there's like a lot of stuff in there that applies to adults. And I was like,
yep.
yeah, it's kind of like a Simpsons, the TV show, which
Uh,
has some adult themes. So that's not the
sure.
same. But like, I enjoy watching The Simpsons. My kids enjoy watching The
Yep.
Simpsons. And it's a really great, like, generational show because the writing is so sharp and it's so funny and the plots are just really engaging. And so,
Yeah.
although I would never compare myself to the amazing writers of The Simpsons, I would say that is my
Uh,
aspiration as a writer
yeah.
to
Well,
be that level.
yeah, and I think people forget too sometimes, right? Like children's books are written by adults. So,
Yes,
it
right.
wasn't written by a kid, it's written by adults.
Exactly. And you have to think of like, well, how would a child approach this? What would a child think about this situation? And it's not going to be like, well, I will call my lawyer and we will assess the
Mm,
situation. It's always like you've got to figure it out. You talk to your friends, you think about
yeah.
how you would handle it or imagine how your parents would handle it. And
Mm,
so that's, in the second book, there's a conflict between two friends and they don't communicate because they don't want to say what they're truly feeling. And, I've experienced this as a grown up. So these are all themes
mm,
that I think replicate over time and are almost ageless, except they're shared in the package of a children's story. So it's a
yeah.
really interesting way to just explore themes that we come across whatever age we're at in life. And it's, for me, it's a really fun challenge to see how could I take what I've learned sometimes as an adult and apply it to what a child would encounter in his or her life, and see what comes out on the other end.
Interesting. So what is there a specific age bracket that you wrote the book for? Because I know you said you have
Yes.
friends who've had their kids of all ages read it, but like who is it
Yeah.
specifically for, written for?
It's mainly for kids that are around 8 to 12.
Okay.
It's a good book to you can read out loud to younger kids. There's nothing
Mm,
inappropriate in it.
okay.
I think older kids like it just because if you've gone to camp or have had an experience that's one of the themes in the book, it's kind of like a nice way to reminisce about your experiences.
Mm,
Um, but there's also some pictures, so it's got a little bit of everything for everyone. And it's just been such a fun process. I would like to say that I've learned a lot about the publishing industry,
mm,
about being a writer, being an author. I think persistence, if I had to choose one adjective, that would be it. Uh, it's it's something you have to be passionate about to really see it through and do it in a way that you're proud of your final product, if you will. And
yeah.
yeah.
Honestly, I'm I guess it's funny because I don't know, like we just met, but I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
proud of you for writing the book.
Well, thank you.
No, I really am because this is what's really interesting to me. Like again, I come back to the author thing.
Uh-huh.
Like there really isn't competition, right? You're not competing with other authors. Like people
Right.
can read an unlimited number of books. And in what I was saying earlier about making an impact on like the next generation,
Yeah.
um, like sometimes even as an adult, right? Like you can hear something like a bunch of times and it doesn't hit you until
Mm-hmm.
you hear it from that person who said it this specific way that it
Yeah.
clicks in your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like every author that puts out a book and for you in your case puts out a book for a kid, it's
Yeah.
like maybe that's the angle that reaches that kid and they learn the lesson and they carry it forward for the
Yeah.
rest of their life.
Right. I mean, there's a theory in the back of my head that I also play with, which is the people that you meet in life are there to teach you a lesson.
Hmm.
And you keep meeting these same types of people until you learn the lesson.
I've heard that. I've heard
So
that.
I think it's interesting because like I write characters that they're relatable, they're very identifiable as like character types that you meet in your
Hmm.
life. Like there's a bossy person, there's a super smart person with a heart of gold but prickly on the outside. There's a
Hmm.
well-meaning person that's kind of goofy. Like it's interesting because I really do believe it. I mean every person is on this earth to teach something to someone, and
Hmm.
whether you want to be open to that lesson or not is up to you, but sometimes the message is harder to digest than others. And that's another fun angle that I like to explore, not to sound too heavy-handed because it's really, my books are very light and very fun, and I test drive them with my children to make sure that they're at an appropriate level of plot and movement. And I used to write before they were able to read the books on their own. So once
Hmm.
I finally finished the second book, my older son read it by himself, and I was like, wow, this is a big deal. And he finished it. So I was like, okay, if he finished it, that's an even better sign, because if he didn't finish it, then it needs more work.
Oh, that's awesome. You know what I'm wondering? Because based on what you were saying, did you feel compelled to write these books because of your kids? Because like, 'cause I know we've talked about that, right? You're like, oh, the
Yeah.
blog, I write it and
Yeah.
they benefit from it. And,
Yeah.
but like also you've talked about it being kind of a way, like almost like you said, to rewrite
Yeah.
your story growing up. But I'm just curious about that.
I think part of the inspiration for why I wanted to write is partially because my kids, when they were very little, I stopped working in a corporate environment, and so I was home more. And I think I wanted to show them that I wasn't just really good at laundry and dinner and making sure that they, had what they needed and everything ran smoothly in the house. And not to diminish that as a role, but for me, I wanted more from a
Hmm.
creative sense. And so
Hmm.
I think I wanted to prove to them, and probably more to me, that I
Sure.
had this skill that I didn't tap into when I was in the corporate world. And I needed something for my brain to sort of grab onto, and to keep me engaged, and give me a reason to wake up in the morning, in addition to a family that I wanted to be amazingly supportive for. So in a
Yeah.
way, I think I do write for them, because what else could I do as a mother in addition to loving them? But with my gift of being able to write, then I can also share all these really incredible lessons that I would love for them to know. And, maybe they don't have to experience it firsthand like my characters do, but to read about them and understand it, and to be able to process it and apply it into their own lives, and then multiply that to whoever else reads this book. So,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
would love for that to just have that same pebble in the water and ripple out, and
Yeah.
just put good things out into the world, and hopefully change somebody, or several people's lives for the better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was thinking how, like, when you were doing it, like for the reasons that you said, what's interesting is that they themselves can benefit from reading the book, but
Hmm.
also the fact that they have a mom that wrote books
Right.
also is like a paradigm shift, right? Like most people are like the life that they're living is, hey, like my parents, I don't know, they go to work, they just have a normal job and I go to
Yeah.
school and this is what happens, right? It's just like a very basic, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying like
Hmm.
that's the majority, right?
Yeah.
But to have a mother who is an author, that's different. And that just like what we were talking about before about like making a decision to do what you feel compelled to do and not what you feel like just you should do. It's
Yeah.
like they have a living example of that, right? Like it's
Yeah.
easy to say it, but it's like, hey, yeah, that's what my mom did, right? Like my
Right.
mom wrote these books. It's like maybe for them now, what they feel like doing is
Hmm.
more of an option than it would
Yeah.
have been otherwise, instead of it just the priority being get a job where you can support yourself versus
Yeah.
find a path that
Hmm.
yes, you can support yourself with, but that also lights a fire in you.
Yeah. There's a funny story that I've told before about when my first book came out. I gave copies to some of our friends that had kids because it was 8 to 12. So my son, I think, was around 10 or so at the time. So some of the friends that I gave it to, they gave it to their kids to read. And after summer break, one of the young ladies in my son's class did a book report on a book she read over the summer. And lo and behold, it was my book. And she said, "This is the best book I've ever written." It was so funny. And like, I loved this character. And she gave all this detail. And then someone looked at the cover and they said, "Hey," to my son, "isn't that your mom?" And my son said, "Oh, yeah, that is my mom's book." And then never told me all this happened at school. And I heard from a friend of a friend, "Oh, so and so brought up your book in the, summer reading and said it was the best book she ever wrote." And I was like, "Huh, that's weird. My son never told me." And so then I asked him, he's like, "Oh, yeah, that happened." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you don't realize that, like, this is what I live for when I
Yep.
ask how was school. And like, if
Yep.
someone read my book and talked about it, like, this is headline news."
Hello.
The level of
Page 1.
importance. This is like, you don't even like walk more than a foot. Like, you tell me immediately. So that was a really funny story. I always think fondly of how I was the highlight of someone's summer reading, and I never would have found out if it weren't for the daughter's mother, who is a friend of mine. So
Yeah, that is
can't
really
count
funny.
on my children. I've started a blog about that one. That's my next blog.
So funny. No, I love it. Yeah, Steph, look, I really appreciate you coming on today. I feel like we had such a great
Yeah, this
conversation.
was so fun.
Yeah, and definitely, I do have, obviously, because now I have a kid. Now I'm friends with
Yeah,
parents.
yeah.
I have, friends who have kids around that age, so I'll definitely recommend it to them. And
Well,
so for
thank you so
anybody
much.
that's listening that wants to get the book for their kids, or maybe their nephew or nieces or their friends' kids, how would they do so?
I have a website that's chock full of information. It's www.stephkatzovi, STEPHKATZOVI.com. And you can also read some of the blogs that I talked about. But there's information on how to get my books. And, if you enjoy reading it and you want to reach out and share a story, please find the link on my website and reach out. I'd love to connect.
Awesome. Steph, thank you so much again for coming on today, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It was truly a pleasure and had such a great time.
Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who'd appreciate it. For everything I have to offer, visit howtobeaperson.co.